Imagine a cold autumn night, the familiar comfort of an old car, the radio playing softly as children fat as no in the back seat. For many, it would be the quiet end to a family Sunday. But for the Eves, on that October night in 1974, in the peaceful region of Essex, England, this normality was about to be shattered by an encounter that would defy all human understanding. Before we unveil the layers of this mystery, a crucial detail. The names you will hear, John, Elaine, Karen, Kevin, and Stuart, are pseudonyms. The real family, profoundly marked by the events they experienced, chose complete anonymity, a shield against the turmoil their story provoked. Our respect for this decision is absolute, and we will focus on the documented facts of a case that became a landmark. Prepare yourselves, because what began as a simple drive home transformed into an enigma of lost time, inexplicable lights, and a green fog that seemed to swallow reality itself. This is the Aveley case. Our story unfolds in Aveley, a small town in Essex, England, a place with a surprisingly deep past, where echoes of Neanderthals from over 200,000 years ago and fossils of prehistoric giants like mammoths and ancestral elephants have been unearthed, as if the land itself held ancient secrets, waiting for the right moment to reveal new mysteries. In 1974, Aveley was home to just over 9,000 souls, including the Eves family, John, 32, his wife Elaine, 28, and their 3 children, Karen, 11, Kevin, 10, and little Stuart, age 7, a family described as ordinary, close-knit middle class. On Sundays, they had the affectionate custom of visiting Elaine's parents in Harold Hill, a neighboring town. They would spend the day, share dinner, and only then return to their home in Aveley. On Sunday, October 27, 1974, the routine was followed. Laughter, conversation, the warmth of family togetherness. Around 10 p.m., the Eves family said their goodbyes and began the journey home. A short trip, about 10 miles, approximately 16 kilometers, which normally wouldn't take more than 22 minutes. Karen and Stuart, the youngest, soon fell asleep, lulled by the gentle motion of the car. Kevin, the middle child, watched the nocturnal landscape through the car window while the radio whispered a discreet melody. Everything was perfectly normal. But the cosmos, or something in it, had other plans. Midway through the journey, south of Hornchurch, near a place called Rectory Lane, Kevin's attentive gaze caught something unusual. A whitish-blue light, somewhat oval in shape, hovering at an impressive height of about 2,600 feet. He immediately alerted his parents. The first assumption, a helicopter. But the silence was unsettling. No characteristic sound of rotor blades, no sound of any known aircraft engine. And worse, the light seemed to be following them, a silent sentinel in the dark sky. John, maintaining what calm he could, took the usual exit for Park Farming Road. The light, relentless, followed them. After about half a mile, the luminous object maneuvered boldly, positioning itself in front of the car, almost on a collision course. The moment the vehicle approached, the light swerved abruptly, diving and disappearing behind a large bush. John perhaps breathed a sigh of relief and continued. They were just a few miles from home, but the relief was short-lived. Suddenly, a subtle yet palpable change filled the air. The air seemed different, and the sound extinguished. The car's engine, the friction of the tires on the road, the noises of the night outside, everything went silent. The only audible thing was the faint melody still emanating from the radio. Then before them, the impossible materialized. A green fog, thick, almost solid, about 8 feet high, completely blocking the road. John, with no alternatives, slowed down, visibility almost nil, and slowly entered that emerald veil. The instant the car was engulfed by the first layer of fog, the radio began to fail, crackling erratically, and an acrid smoke started to emanate from the device. Fearing a fire, John and Elaine acted quickly, pulling out the wires to turn it off. With the radio silenced, the car's headlights also went out. The engine, previously just quiet, now seemed to lose power. An anomalous chill permeated the vehicle, and upon the couple and young Kevin, the only one still awake, an overwhelming drowsiness descended, a desperate struggle to keep their eyes open. A tingling sensation ran through their bodies. They had the bizarre impression of not knowing if the car was still moving or stationary. Suddenly, a jolt, an impact, as if they had hit something or passed over an invisible speed bump. Looking around, the green fog was gone. The drowsiness had dissipated. The car's engine rumbled normally, and the headlights once again illuminated the road ahead. To them, the experience inside that ghostly fog seemed to have lasted mere seconds. Elaine, moved by an inexplicable instinct, asked if everyone was okay, if everyone was there. She looked back. Karen and Stuart were sleeping soundly. Kevin, now, more alert, was looking at the landscape through the window. The couple was terrified, their nerves on edge, but John, striving to show control, resumed the drive home, his heart pounding against his ribs, his mind searching for answers that didn't exist. Upon arriving home, the priority was to get the children, still asleep, into their beds. John, seeking some normalcy, sat down to watch a television program he usually followed. It was then that the final shock of that night revealed itself. Looking at the clock, John and Elaine realized incredulously that it was already past 1 a.m. They should have arrived around 10:20 p.m. At least 3 hours. 3 long hours had vanished from their lives, swallowed by that stretch of road, by that impenetrable fog. And the most frightening part, no one remembered absolutely anything that could fill that gap. Only the memory of entering the fog, the sudden drowsiness, the jolt, and the return to apparent normality. What happened during those 3 lost hours? The question hung heavy and unanswered in the air of that house. The experience on that sinister road was just the beginning. In the months that followed, the Eves family began to undergo abrupt and disconcerting behavioral transformations. Everyone except for little Stuart developed a visceral aversion to any kind of meat. They, who previously consumed meat abundantly, now felt revulsion at the mere sight of it, becoming vegetarians overnight. John and Elaine, who occasionally enjoyed an alcoholic drink, completely lost interest. But the most intriguing change was in John. A heavy smoker, consuming about 60 cigarettes a day, he simply abandoned the habit, effortlessly, without desire. The habit vanished as if it had never existed, and as if these internal changes weren't bizarre enough, an external threatening presence began to haunt them. The family claimed that, in the same week as the incident, they started being constantly followed by cars with tinted windows. They varied between 3 models, a blue or red Jaguar and a white minivan. The drivers, men dressed in black with suits, sunglasses and hats, the classic image of the infamous Men in Black. There were occasions when these vehicles would park in front of the family's house, the occupants staring at them. Sometimes until 1 a.m. They would only leave when John, in desperation, called the police. As soon as the patrol car approached, the mysterious men would disappear. This pursuit, according to them, lasted for almost a year, occurring almost daily. The telephone also became an instrument of torment. It would ring insistently, and when they answered, only the disturbing sound of heavy breathing on the other end of the line. The following years were a whirlwind of inexplicable events, undermining the Eves family's peace and sanity. The psychological pressure became unbearable, culminating in John suffering a nervous breakdown in 1977. Worn out, confused, and desperately searching for some kind of explanation, they came across a newspaper article about UFOs. The story narrated therein bore disturbing similarities to what they had experienced on that fateful night in 1974. It was the last straw. They needed help. That's how they contacted Andrew Collins, a name that would become intrinsically linked to the case. Collins, a renowned British author, researcher, and ufologist, was already known for his in-depth studies of unexplained phenomena, including alien abductions, UFO sightings, and even archaeological mysteries. With a history of serious investigations in the field of ufology since the 1970s, and the author of several books exploring everything from the supernatural to possible extraterrestrial connections in ancient civilizations, he was the right person to hear their story. Upon learning of the Eves family's account, Andrew Collins felt an immediate interest. The element of lost time, the missing time, was a strong indicator in his experience of possible abduction cases. But before diving in headfirst, Collins was a methodical investigator. His first concern, the family's credibility. Were they reliable witnesses, or were they fantasizing? To begin, he retraced the journey between Elaine's mother's house and the Eves residence. The 10 miles were covered in about 22 minutes, exactly as the family had reported. The first point for the story's consistency. Andrew Collins delved into the family's life before the incident. John, though intelligent and creative, had left school at 15 and worked most of his life as a carpenter. Elaine, described as shy, also hadn't finished high school, dedicating herself to her children. After the Green Fog event, their personalities and life paths changed drastically. John, after the nervous breakdown that occurred 3 months after that night, quit his carpentry job. He was unemployed for 10 months, but then, surprisingly, found an opportunity in an area he had always desired, helping people with intellectual developmental disorders, teaching art to this demographic. Elaine, the formerly shy woman, blossomed. She became confident, uninhibited. She returned to her studies a few months after the incident and landed a better job than she had ever had. Kevin, the son who had witnessed the light and the fog, and who at 10 still struggled with reading and writing, underwent a remarkable educational transformation. He became an excellent reader and writer, one of the top students in his class. With above-average performance, the abrupt changes, like vegetarianism and John quitting smoking, were also considered unusual and significant by Collins. But there was more. The family reported an escalation of strange and unexplained activities in their own home, events they considered paranormal, which began just days after the encounter on the road. The back door, always kept locked and being quite heavy, reportedly flew open abruptly on one occasion, terrifying everyone. Objects moved on their own. Strange noises, like a sequence of clicks resembling Morse code messages, were heard, especially after midnight, seeming to emanate from the couple's bedroom, though their exact origin was never located. They also heard sounds as if a large object was approaching their house, hovering over it for a while, and then departing, leaving absolute silence. These phenomena were not exclusive to the family. Visitors also witnessed some of these supernatural activities. It was this avalanche of bizarre occurrences that largely led to John's breakdown. Strange lights and orbs were also frequently seen, flying over the residence, sightings corroborated by neighbors. One of the most unsettling accounts Collins collected occurred about a year after the initial incident. Kevin, the son, woke up during the night and saw a humanoid creature standing beside his bed. He described it as a figure dressed in white, with a face that didn't look human, or was perhaps covered by something that disfigured it, a makeup or mask that made it no longer look human. While Collins investigated, the strange events continued. On December 13th, 1977, while the couple was watching TV, a portable radio sitting on top of the television simply levitated about 4 inches into the air, hovered for a few seconds, and then fell to the floor. Later that same night, with the whole family gathered in the living room, the doorknob of a hallway door slowly turned, as if someone on the other side was about to enter. Andrew Collins dedicated himself intensely to the case, accompanying the family almost daily for months, collecting detailed testimonies. He even spent a night at the Eves house, sleeping on the living room sofa. In the early hours of the morning, he was awakened by knocking sounds coming from the kitchen. Initially, he thought it was a family member, but then a peculiar sensation washed over him, a tingling that started in his feet and traveled up his body, bringing with it a wave of tranquility and peace he had never experienced before. During the interviews, a fascinating detail emerged. That night on the Aveley Road was possibly not John and Elaine's first encounter with the unexplained. Memories of previous UFO-related events surfaced. Between 1965 and 1966, when they were still dating, they were at a resort watching the sunset when they were surprised by a disc-shaped object that hovered over the sea for about 10 minutes before shooting up into the sky at high speed. In 1968, John, traveling with friends, spotted a bluish-white light. At the same instant, the car in front of him had its headlights go out, and the vehicle John was driving began to slow down and even shut off on its own, resulting in a collision with the car in front, which then involved two more vehicles. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured. After the light disappeared, all cars started working normally again. Although a UFO connection was suspected in both cases, the lack of more precise details about the objects prevented confirmation at the time. However, one of the most extraordinary aspects that caught Collins' attention was the phenomenon of shared dreams. The entire family began having recurring and disturbingly similar dreams. They saw themselves lying on tables, being examined by small creatures of whom they felt an instinctive fear. At the time, not yet making the ufological connection, they referred to these beings as gnomes. These dreams recurred frequently, weaving a common dream narrative among all family members. Andrew Collins raised a crucial hypothesis. What if these dreams were in fact repressed memories, fragments of those 3 lost hours? With this suspicion in mind, Andrew Collins suggested that the couple undergo regressive hypnosis sessions, a controversial technique but often used in alleged abduction cases to try to access blocked memories. Though reluctant at first, John eventually agreed. The first session was conducted by Dr. Leonard Wilder, a dental surgeon with experience in hypnosis, and was attended by Dr. Bernard Finch, a medical consultant, and ufological researcher Gordon Creighton. John was easily hypnotized, but curiously, he resisted regression to the night of the incident. He remembered starting the journey, the green fog, the smoke from the radio, and then just a fleeting glimpse. A figure that looked like a man wearing a turban or a light-colored tunic. Nothing more. A week later, in the second session, John seemed calmer. This time the regression flowed, and the memories that emerged were terrifying. John described seeing a very tall being, about 8 feet 2 inches, with penetrating pink eyes and a face where the mouth was not visible, as if wearing some kind of mask. These beings, dressed in a single piece of clothing, were leaning over him as he seemed to be undergoing some sort of examination. At one point during the regression, John murmured that those creatures needed us as hosts. Asked about the meaning of this, he replied that they wouldn't let him talk about it. The regression became difficult, as if a mental barrier prevented him from continuing. The session was ended. 2 weeks later, a new attempt, and this time it was a success. John recalled a profusion of details. Besides the tall, pink-eyed beings, there were others, much smaller, around 4 to almost 5 feet tall, whom John referred to as examiners. These smaller beings had allegedly used a machine to scan his body. John also remembered hearing a conversation about the ship's propulsion system, something too complex for him to understand, but it involved magnetic ion energy and vortices. During the session, John was asked about the reason for these beings' visit. His answer was enigmatic and unsettling. It wasn't a visit. They are always here. The reason they are here is to observe and lead through observation. Pressed about where the bases of these beings might be, John fell silent. He answered no more. He was then awakened, and the doctors decided there should be no more sessions, believing the process had already unlocked enough for other memories to emerge spontaneously. Elaine did not undergo hypnosis, but simply witnessing her husband's memories during the sessions seemed to trigger her own. The children were not subjected to the process, as it was considered too invasive and potentially traumatic for their ages. In the following days and weeks, as memories surfaced, the couple shared everything with Andrew Collins. Notably, their memories complemented each other, fitting together like pieces of a complex puzzle, which to Collins indicated a genuinely shared experience, not a fabrication. Based on the hypnosis sessions and the couple's subsequent memories, a cohesive narrative of what might have occurred during the 3 lost hours began to form. The smoke from the radio could have been a sleep-inducing agent. Shortly thereafter, an unidentified flying object would have approached and threw a beam of light. The car with the family inside would have been taken into the craft. There, the smaller beings, the examiners, would have conducted various experiments on all family members, while the taller, pink-eyed beings observed and possibly gave instructions. Communication allegedly occurred telepathically. The beings were said to have implied that John and Elaine had been chosen by them some time ago, though the exact reason for this choice was not made clear. One particularly intriguing detail that emerged from the memories was the sight of a star map. But this map was different. It did not contain the 8 or 9 at the time planets we know, but 11. After the tests or examinations were completed, the family was reportedly taken to another section of the craft. The entire experience, despite being frightening, was described as having occurred in an apparently peaceful manner without explicit violence. The jolt or impact they felt upon exiting the fog was, in fact, the moment the car was gently placed back on the road. Still, even with all these revelations, the full details of those 3 hours remained, and still remain, partially veiled in mystery. Andrew Collins did not keep his findings to himself. He published his extensive research on the Aveley Abduction case in the renowned British ufology magazine Flying Saucer Review, one of the leading publications of its kind in the 1970s and 1980s. The detailed investigations were presented in the November 1977 issue, with possible supplementary publications in April 1978, according to some sources. Collins continued to follow the Eves family for several years. The last news of them dates from 2006. John and Elaine had reportedly divorced, apparently due to finding different purposes in life, but they maintained a friendship and their relationship with their children, whose lives also followed their own courses, forever marked by that extraordinary night. The Aveley Abduction case, as it became known, solidified itself as one of the most iconic and well-documented ufological cases in all of Europe. Its strength lies not only in the family's unsettling accounts, but in the meticulous investigation conducted by Andrew Collins over several years, and in the analysis of other experts who, at the time, tended to conclude that the Eves family was telling the truth. A crucial point that always weighed in favor of the report's veracity was the family's constant refusal to seek any kind of fame or financial gain from their story, always opting for anonymity. The night of October 27, 1974, forever transformed the lives of the Eves family. From a simple drive home to an enigma that has spanned decades, the Aveley case forces us to confront the possibility of realities far beyond our everyday comprehension. Lights in the sky, an impenetrable fog, lost time, beings from other worlds. Could these be echoes of a universe far vaster and stranger than we dare to imagine? The Eve's story, with its profound changes and the phenomena that surrounded them, raises questions that still resonate today in ufological circles and among those who look to the stars with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. And what do you think about the Aveley case? Were you already familiar with this incredible story? Do you believe the memories recovered under hypnosis reflect what actually happened during those 3 lost hours? Or do you have another theory to explain this bizarre series of events? Share your opinion with us in the comments. We love to know what you, fellow explorers of the unknown, think about these mysteries. If this journey into the uncanny has moved you and made you question the boundaries of our reality, don't forget to leave a like. That small gesture is like a beacon to YouTube, signaling that content like this, which delves into the great enigmas of our universe, deserves to be seen by more people. By liking, you help Alien Cases continue to bring more investigations and reports from the unknown. It's a click that makes a huge difference for us. Thank you for joining us on another exploration. Until the next case.